driven development team because it's the core syntax for a test runner called cucumber, hence the reason why it's called gherkin. It's kind of like a small piece of cucumber. So there's also some other frameworks within some other languages that will support this language, but also it's a great way for you to kind of start out with a template and actually fill out the blanks, as it were. So if you're ever wondering how to get started in running an acceptance test, just write given, when, and then, and fill in the blanks. So given that, let's work together and try and do one of these acceptance tests. I don't know if this will work or not. I've never done it this way before. So imagine you're writing a new video game called Mastermind. So how many people here have played Mastermind on the board game? Okay, cool. So who wants to actually explain the rules to Mastermind?
Yeah, I'll give it a crack. You've got 5 coloured pegs, 4. Four coloured pegs, and what you've got to do, so one person puts a combination of coloured pegs behind a screen, and the other person has to guess. So there's a number of iterations of attempts, and you mark it whether one's correct or not. I can't.
Yeah, so black means that you've put the right colour in the right place, and white means that you've put the right colour in the wrong place. So you don't put them next to the ones that are right, you just put 2 black or 1 white and 2 black, depending on how many of each you've got. So that's the person, and then they've got to keep guessing until they get it exactly right. So I was going to initially hand out the pen and paper, but maybe we'll just we'll vocally go through it, I guess. Everybody good at talking? Not quite sure. Okay, so we're going to quickly mock up the specification for how the first guess might be treated. So imagine that your program has generated a code. So for this example, we'll say, oh, there we go, that was the actual, let's just quickly bring up the text cloud. So we'll say that the computer has actually generated a guess for us. Okay, so the computer is playing as the person behind the screen. And say that the computer has said yellow, red, green. So red, green, yellow, then cyan. Okay? So we'll just use. Hey, how about that for a kind of magic? Okay, so that was what I was writing while you weren't there. It was like really magical. Can everybody read that or not? Yeah. Okay, cool. So imagine that the computer has guessed red, green, yellow, and cyan. Okay, so what might be our given? So we'll start off by writing given, when, there. Okay, so given something. Yeah?
Given that the computer has guessed red, green, yellow, and cyan?
Yep. Red, green, yellow, cyan.
This is not the computer's guess, this is the computer's answer.
This is the answer we're trying to achieve, yeah?
Good spotting, see? That's why we write it all down so that people collaborate. So, has
Selected or generated?
Is generated good enough, or do we want some?
Generated.
Okay, cool. Has generated the code. Okay, cool. Yeah. Given that the computer has generated the code,
when the player guesses something, some sample.
so let's make up one that's all right. So we'll do this.
Am I the computer or the player? Well that's the question. Am I the player or the computer?
Take the player for this one.
You'll be the player.
When I, the player, guess something.
Yep.
Choose something.
So when I guess, so we'll just go straight for the whole shebang and we'll go for the end answer. So this is.
That means I've got to guess R, G, Y, C.
Yeah.
Clever.
It's amazing, isn't it? Okay, so we've got a given. So we've got our setup. We've made a guess. So does anybody want to guess what our system should do once it's actually been made?
Burst into flame.
Yeah. So then the computer should explode. No, I'm too fond of things exploding.
What do the rules say?
So, 4 blanks, exactly.
Oh, there you go. It's easy when you get a rule book. It's easy as that in the rule book.
Okay, so hands up here who doesn't know how to play Mastermind now. Okay, cool. No. So anybody got any issues with that as a test? No? Okay, cool. I don't either, so that's quite good. So that'll give you a starting point. So how many other scenarios can we think of? No, we're not going to go down to write them, but there are many other scenarios that will come up from this. So you've got when somebody guesses one of them in the right place, 2 of them in the right place, 3 of them in the right place, 4 of them in the right place. And there are ways that you can get syntax that allows you to repeat different tests with different scenarios, with different combinations, but actually keep the wording exactly the same. But that depends on what test framework you're using, and I don't want to go into specifics. But all I wanted you to look at is this framework gives you quite an easy way to write a test. Ooh. Okay, so what I came up with, given that the secret code is RGYC, when I guess RGYC, the mark should be BBBB. B stands for blank. Yeah. Okay? So they're pretty interchangeable, and they'll both be marked correct for the same scenarios. So that gives you an idea of how to approach writing those acceptance tests. And hopefully you'll all throw that all away and you won't really care. And then you'll come back to it in a year or 2 time and go, hey, I remember there was this strange dude who looked really unprepared and he was talking about something about testing. Oh yeah, given when then. I remember that one. So given when then, that's all I really want you to take away. But there are some good kind of takeaways for writing good tests. And we call them smart outcomes because we're all really, really smart. Okay, so SMART stands for specific. So this means that there are just enough details to know that something is done. So you can't be indecisive about whether you've passed or failed. It's got to be specific about what you're testing. It's got to be measurable, which means that you know that your objective has been reached. So that might sound exactly the same as the first one, but that just means my explanation was really bad. And you can actually go in and read the definition for SMART, because I'm not doing a very good job at explaining. Achievable means that you actually have to be able to pass the test. Okay, so it's no good saying that this test is completely unobtainable, because what's the point in writing it? It's got to be relevant, because otherwise nobody's going to care about whether the test passes or fails. It's going to fall into obscurity, and nobody's going to maintain it. It's just going to be this red blip that kind of follows along. It's got to be time boxed, because you don't want to spend too long writing tests, okay? Because in the end, nobody will pay you to write tests. They will pay you to deliver software. So by saying that I'm going to spend only so much time on this test, then you should be able to just carry on. Okay, I've also got a few quotes from some people I just put out on Twitter saying, anybody out there doing test-driven development want to share anything with some budding young students? Jay Grenning said, tests should be small and tell their story. Okay, so if you're ever writing tests, make sure that they're not too long or verbose, and that they tell the story about what you're trying to test. A guy called Random Code NZ, he says that they should be simple, as in simple tests with simple goals. Don't try and get too convoluted, don't try and cover too much of the system at once. And they should be fast, as in it runs faster, otherwise you're going to be slowing yourself down. Okay, because we all spend a vast percentage of the time making sure the tests carry on passing. If you are waiting for feedback from tests and you're waiting too long, then it's going to be a waste of time. Okay, so one last thing is tests. To me, this is probably my biggest takeaway from test-driven development, and it's one thing that I really like about this level of test-driven development. There's lots more about test-driven development when you talk about it on a developer level and a bit lower down. But tests give us a great way of saying when we're done with a software project. Okay, They give us a way of saying how much